This video gives you the essentials of executive presence, so you finally know what it is, the 3 parts it's built from, and where to start if you want the fastest results. Executive presence, also known as leadership presence or simply strong presence, is what people pick up from how you look, speak, and behave. There are several models that explain the building blocks of executive presence, and today, since we are talking about essentials, I'm going to give you the simplest one. But simplest doesn't mean least important, quite the opposite, because this one comes from Sylvia Ann Hewlett, the leading expert in the field of executive presence. The model breaks into 3 parts, and the proportions may surprise you. How you look and present yourself is just 5%. How you communicate is about 1/3. And the heaviest part, more than a half, is a word you might not know yet: gravitas. These proportions have a logic. The easier something is to fake, the less it counts. Appearance is the easiest thing in the world to fake, so this weighs the least. Gravitas you cannot fake at all, which is why it weighs the most. We'll start with the appearance because even if it only makes about 5% of executive presence, it is what the experts called the gatekeeper dimension. The way you look, dress, and present yourself telegraphs to the world who you are, what you stand for, and what to expect of you. It's the impression of you people take in the first few seconds. Appearance answers this one question: does this person belong here? And if you look like you belong, you will be welcome in. Let me give you a personal example. I travel a lot and I get upgraded constantly. Business class, hotel executive floors, VIP lounges I haven't signed up for. I don't get these upgrades because I ask, but because I look like I belong there, so someone decides in 4 seconds that I do. Marina Bay Sands once put me on their executive floor without any extra cost. I said thank you, and I enjoyed it very much indeed. And what works in exclusive hotels works in the same way in the places that decide your career. That same 4-second decision is happening in every meeting with people senior to you, and it settles whether you get invited to play in the big league or politely kept at the bench. And before you ask, there is no universal executive look. What looks as polished in banking can look as try too hard in tech, and the other way round. There's only the code of your own professional world, so you must know yours and apply it accordingly. Identify the people in the roles you aspire to and observe how they present themselves. You don't have to copy them, and actually I advise against it because being authentic is also part of gravitas. But you need to understand the dress code of these roles and these levels where you're heading, and you need to follow that dress code. By the way, the appearance code moves over time, not only by place. 25 years ago, when I worked at Ernst & Young, we had a guidebook on appearance, and it was thick as a brick. It spelled out exactly what was allowed. A suit or a dress suit for the women, any color you liked, as long as it was black, navy, or dark gray. We could wear delicate earrings, a simple ring, a small watch. That was the promotable look, down to the millimeter. I witnessed people sent back home to change if they didn't comply. It was serious. But that was 25 years ago, and almost none of this applies anymore. So keep your eyes open for what looks senior where you work this year, not the place you walked into a decade ago. And the word for the women watching. We get scrutinized on our appearance far more than the men do. This is not fair, and it's not going to change tomorrow, so it pays to be that much more deliberate about it. And interestingly, the change has accelerated. The code has moved more in the last few years than in the previous 25, and I will talk about it in a video coming out next week. So that was appearance, or the gatekeeper dimension. The second basic part of executive presence is communication, and it makes nearly 1/3 of the whole model. This is the hardest working part because it feeds your gravitas, your influence, and your charisma at once. It's how substance becomes visible. You can have brilliant judgment, but if it comes out as a swamp of corpo speak, or jargon monoxide as I call it, nobody will ever care to listen to you. Two things carry great communication. The first one is command. When you speak, you hold attention instead of apologizing for taking it. You speak with precision and confidence. You adapt the message to your audience in front of you. You remove the small fillers that make you sound uncertain, and you cut the nervous over-explaining and the unnecessary apologizing. I've never seen anybody promoted on the strength of "sorry to interrupt." At the same time, command and confidence don't mean wearing armor. Let people see the real you. A little warmth, a little honest uncertainty where it's genuine. Nobody expects you to have every answer all the time. And nobody expects you to be serious and polished every single minute either. Authority with no warmth in it quickly turns cold, and people will obey it, but they won't trust it. The second area of communication is the quality of the language you use. Your words are the clearest evidence of how you think. That's why I always tell my clients, clear language represents clear mind. The fastest way to sound junior is to hide behind big fancy words or volume. The person who says the sharp thing in one sentence looks more senior than the one who takes 5 sentences and a full slide deck. Watch my video Articulate Your Thoughts Clearly if you want to learn how to do it in 3 precise steps. The link is below. Okay, so that was communication, and it makes about 30% of executive presence. Now, the biggest part of executive presence, more than half of it, is gravitas. It's an old word for a combination of weight and seriousness, the quality that makes people trust you when things get tough. I'm sure you felt it in other people. Someone walks into a tense meeting and without raising their voice, people settle and start to listen. They just carry that weight and everyone feels it, instinctively deferring to them and treating them with respect. That's the weight I mean when I call someone a heavyweight leader or a heavyweight player. That's because people with real gravitas don't get thrown off balance easily. They are steady. They've got real substance. And yes, they can punch hard when they need to, but they rarely have to because everyone around them already knows they can. But gravitas isn't only about weight. Actually, it has 2 halves, the roots and the wings. The roots are a solid place to stand, and the wings let you be light, human, even funny, without losing an ounce of authority. That framing comes from Caroline Goyder, who wrote a book on gravitas, and is the clearest way I've found to hold both at once. What I also want to say clearly is that gravitas is the part you cannot shortcut. You can upgrade your wardrobe this week and clean up your language this month, but weight is built slowly, out of how you behave when it counts, again and again, until people learn that they can rely on you. This is why it carries the most and why it's the rarest of the 3. Gravitas comes down to 3 things, and I'll take you through each one. But before I do, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel because I post a video like this one every week, and I want you to know when the next one drops. And you can help me build more visibility so more people can learn from my know-how. Okay, back to gravitas. The first building block here is integrity. You do the right thing. You say what you mean and you mean what you say. You keep your word, even on the small things, like the meeting you promised to move or the report you said you'd send by Friday. Those little promises are where people decide whether they can count on you. There's a saying I like that summarizes it very well. How you do one thing is how you do everything. You need to keep your word and do the right thing in small and big things alike, so people know, in a predictable way, what to expect of you. And be honest in a way that's kind, because being truthful is not a license to be blunt or hurtful. This is the part people underestimate. Before anyone works out how clever you are or how skilled, they are deciding one simple thing about you. Can I trust this person? And equally important, people want to know if you have goodwill towards them. And the moment they decide yes to both, everything else you do carries more weight in their eyes. So that was integrity. The second pillar of gravitas is composure. This is often called grace under fire, and it's the purest form of gravitas because it's the one thing you cannot fake. It's easy to look senior when everything is going well and everyone is being nice to you. Gravitas is what shows up when things go wrong, when the numbers are bad, a client is angry, when there's a real emergency or a crisis, and everyone turns to see how you will react. If you can stay steady and respectful in such moments, keep your voice calm and your thinking clear, people remember it for a long time. You become the person they want in charge when things get hard. And things will get hard because that is what a senior role really is. The higher you go, the more difficult problems come your way. And people need to know they can trust you to carry them. That's why the third pillar of gravitas is courage. This is your willingness to do the hard things that come with leadership, even when you'd rather not. Saying the unpopular thing in a meeting when it might cost you. Giving someone honest feedback that nobody else wants to give. Making a decision you know some people won't like. I want you to really hear what I'm about to say next. Ready? Gravitas is not about being agreeable and keeping everyone happy. You are not here to win a popularity contest. The people with real weight are the ones who can operate in the discomfort zone because they've decided the job is more important than being liked in the moment. So those are the three: integrity, composure, and courage. Now let's remember that I'm covering the bare bones, the real essentials of executive presence. If you want the full picture, how all the layers of executive presence fit together, I've made a whole video on it, the Executive Presence Blueprint, and I'll put the link to it below. For today, remember that those three, integrity, composure, and courage, carry the most weight and together form gravitas, the biggest part of executive presence. And one more thing. Gravitas gets little attention from high achievers because they are rewarded for the doing. The output, the activity, the tangible results. And that's the trap. Because doing gets you noticed, but it's the gravitas that gets you the trust, respect, and influence you need to build a strong, memorable reputation. Gravitas is invisible and hard to measure, so hardly anybody trains it. On top of that, plenty of people believe the myth that you either have strong presence or you don't, that some people are simply born with it and others aren't. I've spent 2 decades coaching people, and I've watched quiet, overlooked professionals grow into the one person the whole company listens to. I'm telling you now, nobody is born with it. You build it deliberately from the ground up. And that is very good news for you because that means that you can build it too. So let's recap the executive presence essentials. Appearance is the gatekeeper. Communication is the bridge. And gravitas is the weight that keeps it steady. But even though these are the true essentials of executive presence, they have changed a lot in the last 4 years. Next week, I'll explain exactly what changed with fresh research, so you are building executive presence for the world as it is now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.